All right, here we are on the Belisarius Sonic YouTube channel. I'm really excited to have two special guests with me today, Tony Higgins and Mike Peden, who are responsible for the BBE jjazz series. And I'm really excited to talk to them about how this all came together. And you guys, first of all, are responsible for me getting into jazz. I had not even got into the genre until I picked up the first record here that really introduced me to all these fantastic artists. And so I had no clue about any of this music until I bought this. So I thank you guys for introducing me to all this wonderful music, but also I spent a lot of money since I came across that record on a lot of different albums. So,
Yeah, sorry about
We'll
so
bankrupt you yet.
that.
yeah, so I appreciate you guys coming on. First of all, I want to know, I'm kind of curious how you guys came together on this. You guys kind of have different backgrounds, right? Tony, you kind of come from record label music management and have done things for British television. And Mike, you kind of come from the UK DJ scene, from what I understand. So how did you guys come together to even start working on this kind of a project?
Um,
Uh, yeah, about 20 years ago, I had a blog. Remember the days of blogs?
Yeah,
And
yeah, right.
I had a blog called Orgy and Rhythm. And yeah, it's about 20, it's got to be 20 years ago now. And part of that blog was devoted to Japanese jazz, which was niche, to put it mildly, in those days. And I had a message from this guy called Tony Higgins, and he said, "Oh, I quite like Japanese jazz as well." And I was like, "Oh God, there's two nerds in the UK," and so we hooked up, and it all went downhill from there, really.
So
yeah,
that's how you
yeah.
guys got started.
I followed Mike's blog, as he said, and I just contacted him, and we just struck up a kind of correspondence. And then we finally met, and it snowballs from there, and you end up sort of saying, oh, "Have you heard this? Have you heard this? What about this? Check this out." And you just kind of, and then after several years of chatting and meeting, we thought it'd be a good idea to do a compilation, because no one had really done one before in this country anyway. And so that's how it happened. And sort of we had the idea about 2017, 2016, 2017 or thereabout.
Yeah,
And
17. I think it's actually
yeah,
before that.
possibly. Yeah. And then we took the idea to BBE Music and pitched it to them, and they accepted the idea, and we were off.
Yeah, so you guys have done so you got volume five coming up on the this series, right? So the fifth volume's coming out,
Yeah,
I think, next month or March, maybe.
I think a
March.
little. No, actually, I think it's been pushed back slightly because of delays in production, but it will be out, I think, in the late spring, maybe April, something like that.
Yeah, and
So,
these yeah,
soon.
each of these volumes, okay, yeah, and each of these volumes kind of have a different theme to them. But are these come largely from your personal collection, or where do you find all these? There's just and a lot of these are very obscure. I mean, a lot of these you couldn't even purchase, before these were available with these reissues.
I think that when we when we first hooked up and started discussing it, we the whole idea was to have as high a quality as possible, but you don't want anything too obvious and too cliched, and as it's quite niche anyway, you end up going down some real rabbit holes. So volume one was pretty straightforward for us to do. Volume two, when I say straightforward, it wasn't so hard to do the selections, and the licensing wasn't so bad. Volume two, much the same. By the time we got to volume three, it started getting a bit harder, with especially with the licensing. Now with volume four, Nippon Columbia, that was okay. This one has been quite something to pull it together, to put it mildly, because there's so much Japanese jazz now been extensively looked at, sampled, reissued, and so you have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty much all from our personal collections. Yes.
And how do you source these? I know some of them, like this new one that's coming out for the jjazz Masterclass series, um, which is going to be what Sachi Hayasaka. That one's coming out here as well.
Yeah.
And that one's going to, it says it's a source from the analog tapes. Now, all these you can't source from the original analog tapes, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's a mix of um, yeah. So Sachi Hayasaka, we dealt directly with her herself, the artist. Mike had the original album. It was a private press. Not many were pressed originally, but Mike had the LP, and he suggested. Basically, we all suggest albums of our from our collections to BBE. We say let's reissue this album. So we scan the artwork and all of that, and for the most part, the tapes simply aren't available. So this was quite unusual for a Stir Up and Free Fight album, because she had the tapes herself. Um, but for the most part, we either get a digital transfer done in Japan and it's sent over, or we just take it from the vinyl at a studio, and because that's the only chance he's got. There's no other source. But fortunately, most Japanese jazz records, when you buy them, are in pristine condition, um, virtually unplayed. In a lot of cases, they look unplayed. So the condition is really top spec. It's not like, if you buy American jazz albums or European ones, they're often, unless you pay really top dollar, they're often a sort of surface noise and all of that. I can live a bit of surface noise, but if you're producing and re-recording it, you've got to make sure that it's as clean as possible. I mean, you can get rid of clicks and pops, but for the most part, most of our albums that Mike and I have, the original owners of these records really looked after them. So when you get them, they're like pristine anyway. So fortunately, very few of them needed cleaning up. And it's done at a studio
Yeah.
called the Carvery in London, a sort of Grammy-nominated mastering studio. A guy called Frank does them, and he's absolutely brilliant. And he makes them sound, even when we can compare them to the originals because we have the original albums, and sometimes they sound better.
I think that's a very true thing. The number of audiophile people I know, we did Topology, and the tapes are missing, and Frank remastered it, and it came out on a double LP 45, and people were saying to me who had the original album, they reckon that Frank's edition was better than the original, and it does sound like that as well. They're quite exceptional the way he actually masters it, and the way they're reproduced is fantastic. But the funny thing was with Stir Up Free Fight, her husband found the tapes in the back of the wardrobe apparently,
Wow.
and so it was quite fortuitous. So it's actually taken a bit of listening to sort of whittle it down. And we went back to her and we said, there's multiple takes, and I was trying to ID the multiple takes to the actual album. We sent them over to Sachi, and she said, I'll be honest with you, I can't tell
No.
I can't tell which is which. So Frank had to ID them, but so they are actually all taken from the original masters, with the Stir Up Free Fight, the Sachi Hayasaka album.
Yeah. For
I'm looking
volume,
forward to getting that.
the first compilation, which came out in 2018, all those tracks were taken from independent or private press albums. So we were able to go direct to the artist or the producer, or the label owner if it still existed. And as Mike said, that process for the first album was remarkably quick. It was either a yes or no. And in fact, when we submitted our track list to BBE, I think we pretty much got every track we wanted. I seem to
I
recall.
think we did, because
Yeah,
I think I think there's some context to it, isn't there? Because when we did it, it hadn't been done. No one had touched Japanese jazz. It just happened to be unfortunate. We'd been formulating it for a few years, and Jazzman Records. I was with Yusuke Ogawa at Universe Sounds and chatting to him about the licensing, and I was saying, "Could you help us do a bit of licensing on a few tracks?" And he said, "I'm sorry, Mike. but Gerald Jazzman Records has already licensed this track. We're like, what? Anyway, Tony spoke to Gerald. It all was
Yeah.
sorted out. But yeah, I think pretty much in those days, the Japanese labels were more than happy to license stuff, and for reasonably, relatively good amounts of money. Not ridiculously expensive. And I think I think it's fair to say they were a bit bemused at these guys coming in from Britain saying, "Oh, could we license this? Could we license that?" Especially some of the private press stuff where we had to go direct to the artist. But then jjazz 1 sold really well, and I think we did Tachibana and East Plants off the back of that. And then jjazz 2, the profile started rising and rising, and that's when things got a bit more interesting, shall we say?
Yeah, the label,
So that's kind
the
of,
labels
you
in
have to get.
Japan, they wake up. The labels in Japan became a bit more sort of savvy to um,
Mm.
what you're doing, and so you see the fees increasing slightly year on year. And obviously, and for the first one, we studiously avoided major labels. For the second one, there's a few major labels on there because dealing with major labels is a real pain. It's incredibly bureaucratic, sclerotic, really slow, and expensive in a lot of the cases. Um, but some of the major labels in Japan, like Nippon Columbia and Philips, have some of the best material. So if, to avoid them, you're limiting yourself. It's doable, but so we have to be very choosy about which ones we go to, the major labels.
So I have a question. When you are these, you have to pay upfront fees, or is it just how many records you sell? You have to pay them a certain amount, or how does that work? I think it's kind of a misconception. Like, okay, when you're gonna get permission to use their music, and then let's say you sell 500 records. Do they take a cut of that amount, or is it just an
Uh,
upfront fee you guys pay, or how does that work?
well, you pay an advance, you pay a licensing fee in advance, and then there's a royalty on the sales. So it's completely risk free for them. I mean, what's
Mm.
interesting is that um, before we started doing this, I mean, there was one guy in Japan who was kind of exploring Japanese jazz, a guy called Yusuke Ogawa, who's a record dealer in Japan. He was kind of almost alone championing Japanese jazz in Japan. It really, literally, was just him. And he put out some compilation CDs that you could only get in Japan, and you used to buy them on import. But apart from him, no one else was really doing it. Um, Certainly not outside Japan. And so Mike and I were pretty much amongst the first to do it. And um, so yeah, it was. We were kind of wondering why no one had done it before. It's kind of odd, and I still haven't got quite. I think part of it is the language barrier, the business culture barrier.
Mm.
It's so far away, you know. I mean, neither Mike or I speak or read Japanese, but we're very lucky. We've got a guy called Ken Hidaka, who is a native Japanese speaker. He lives in Tokyo and he does lots of work. He's like a fixer on the ground for lots of record labels, and he does all the license coordination. And without him, you just couldn't do it. It'd be impossible.
Mm.
Ken's like really our secret weapon. But yeah, we think and coming up to volume 5, as Mike said, it's been the hardest one to put together because the easy thing to do as you put more volumes out of a series of compilations is to just you end up stacking it with just filler stuff, right? Easy stuff to get, and you kind of it goes off the boil type of thing, right? You've all seen that with if you've collected a series of compilations and by volume 3 or 4 they're like, they're not as good as volume 1, is it? We were
Mm.
determined to keep the quality just as high from volume 1 all the way through. Our name's on it. If you want to we have a reputation, some of us do anyway, and
Sure.
maybe before the wrong things, but you want to maintain that. And I've always approached it, what would I want to buy? You know, if I'm going to spend my money on something, I want it to be good, and I wouldn't want to, you know, put out a piece of rubbish for someone to spend their hard-earned money on. It's just not fair. So, I mean, also we respect the music, and we want to make sure that every time we put out a compilation, it's got a diverse range of music on it, interesting, but ultimately just really, really good music. I think I forgot your
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. So this, I do want to talk about this because this is incredible, and I recommend anybody that wants to know anything about Japanese jazz. This is pretty much you guys did a fantastic job of this, but this book here has a wealth of information. I'm still reading this and going through all the wonderful information here. But how long did it take you guys to put this together? This is wonderful. Because I was really looking for information on this, and you guys really are the source to go to for this. So, yeah, talk about this project. This is wonderful.
It took a few years.
About 3 years.
Mildly, yeah.
I think about 3 years when we had the idea to it being published, give or take. Yeah.
And it was very much of a joint effort. There's probably 1, 2, 3, 5. There's the pair of us and Mats Gustafsson. There's a couple of guys in China as well who contributed their covers. So yeah, it was a worldwide effort. Stuff getting scanned in Shanghai and being emailed, transferred over, that sort of thing. And same with Matt's, wasn't it? He scanned so much free jazz for us, which is stuff that you wouldn't have a hope of finding anywhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a really good worldwide effort.
I mean, because the bulk of the records in the book are Mike and ours, but we had gaps in our, as anyone does, in our collection. And I'd contacted the musician Mats Gustafsson, who's also a big record collector and dealer, about one particular record that I knew that he had. And I explained the project, and I said, would you be happy to photograph or scan that? He went, yeah, of course, no problem. He said, what else do you want? I said, well, I don't know, what have you got? And he sent me this list of about 20 odd albums, and I thought, oh my God, I'd love to have those. And that really, the sort of albums that were only available at one gig in 1978, and 20 copies are pressed. That kind of level of stuff that we'd never see. And he completed a small but very important part of the book, which was the really far end of free and improvised music. Mike and I had some of that stuff, but Matt had the absolute A-game stuff. And also we had some albums, but without the Obi strip. So, but we follow some collectors on Instagram. We all follow each other, and some big heavyweight collectors in China had albums that we had, but they had first editions with the original Obis, which are incredibly rare. So we contacted them, and they were like, cool, man, yeah, we'll. So people were really generous and really up for it and really believed in the project, and for all of that, it really came together. And the book took about 3 years, and scanning and photographing the sleeves and writing all the content for it and all of that, and getting it all right, and then getting the DJ charts in the back. But in the end, when we finally saw the finished product, it was like, wow, this is come
it's
out
amazing.
as good as
It was worth the effort.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a beautiful book, and again, it's unique. It's one of a kind. I mean, there's really nothing else like this, with the pictures and then all the information that you guys wrote about the history of it all, and it's incredible. So, hats off to you guys for doing that. That's really a cool project.
I mean, there are books in Japan which dealt with Japanese jazz with just thumbnail prints in them. Yusuke Agawa did one, which was like a Bible to a lot of the people who are into it many years ago. Never been reprinted. And there's quite a few others with US jazz, European jazz, and that was kind of one of our inspirations in a way. That we love these little. They're like that big,
Mm.
with like 3 or 4 albums a page, in color. And we thought, God, what could we do? Make this even better and like do the full, LP size cover, like the blue notebooks and all the rest of it. And that's kind of
Right.
probably one of the things that inspired us to do it.
Yeah. Then in the information that you can't find anywhere, which leads me to talk a little bit about the the idea of Japanese jazz in the United States. It's become more popular over the last several years. But what initially attracted you guys to some of these artists, and how did you come across some of these records to begin with?
Well,
Go on, Mike.
for me, it was back in. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Let's try out this old one. No, back in the early '80s, there was a big there was a in British clubs there was a big thing on Japanese sort of jazz funk, and it was the early '80s, that sort of thing. And I kind of picked up on that, and I bought quite a few of the records. There was a place called Disc Empire down the King's Road that imported stuff. So buying things like Himiko Kikuchi, Sadao Watanabe, Hiroshi Fukumara, that sort of thing. And most of it, to be fair, was pretty soft fusion, not that good. But it sort of, you see the obies, you see the covers, and it kind of stayed with me. And for years afterwards, if you saw Japanese stuff, you think, oh yeah, that you'd recognise different names, and particularly people like Masabumi Kikuchi, Teramasa Hino, and it kind of spun off from there. So by the '90s, I sort of knew about TBM, that sort of thing, and a lot of the sort of acoustic end of Japanese jazz coming out of the fusion stuff. And then when the internet sort of opened up, it just sort of went. I was just like, wow, you sort of go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole because you know so many of the artists, and by that point you know what's fusion fluff, what's really good, what's hardcore, that sort of thing. Started the blog, and through the blog started contacting. I had contact with guys in Japan who would recommend me stuff, and it just sort of spiraled out from there. Quite fantastic, really, the way it all worked out. And so to go from sort of the most lightweight, rubbish, soft, fluffy fusion crap in the '80s to almost free jazz, well, to a lot of free jazz now, it's been quite a journey. But you've like Tony, you've done the British jazz, you've done the European jazz, you've done American jazz, you've done the Blue Note thing, and you're thinking, what can we do next? And it just happened that we both stumbled across Japanese jazz, and it sort of spiraled off from there.
Yeah, I mean, I came to it a little bit later than Mike because I'm slightly younger than Mike. But so I was at college in London studying and going to clubs and things, and going to jazz clubs and funk clubs and all of that, and and just sort of exploring my way through that. And as Mike said, I was buying kind of entry level kind of dance jazz, really Latin jazz and Blue Note and stuff on fantasy and jazz funk and all that kind of stuff. And then I seem to recall, I was trying to think about this. I think the first Japanese jazz record I bought was by an amazing keyboard player called Masabumi Kikuchi. He's dead now, sadly, but it was called Susto, and it's not a rare album at all. You can buy it for like probably $5, but this would have been early '90s, and it didn't sound like anything. It was just absolutely, and it still sounds crazy now. It's just completely out there. And then slowly I picked up a few more, and then I had the fortunate opportunity to go to Japan, very late '90s. So I worked in the music business at the time, and I went all around Shibuya, the record shops, and all of that. I mean, God, if I knew then what I know now, I would. Oh my God, I would have cleaned up, you know. But because at that time they had the record shops the jazz record shop in Japan were just obsessed with Blue Note and American jazz, and the Japanese stuff was like almost an embarrassment. It was like in a box under the counter or under the shelf. there was literally no one's interested in it, right? So I picked up a couple of things that I recognised: Sadao Watanabe, Teru Masahino, the big names that you kind of. And I think I bought possibly my first TBM, my Three Blind Mice record there, which was Blow Up by Asao Suzuki, and another
Mm.
album called Active Volcano, Nobuhara. They were my first two Three Blind Mice records. Three Blind Mice, by the way, if you don't know, is one of the premier jazz labels in Japan. And it kind of just started from there.
I
And like
bought
Mike
several of
says,
them.
yeah, wow, yeah. And as Mike said, like anything, it's a learning process. You start to recognize artists and players and bass players and pianists, and it just, you start cataloging all these names in your brain. And then, you know, around the millennium, when the internet really took off, and the highlight of the high point of the blogs, it absolutely, as Mike said, it exploded, and the knowledge exchange just, and suddenly you're kind of open up to this whole world, really. But buying them in the UK was still very, very difficult, because very, very few ever left Japan. Um, you saw them very rarely. I mean, you see a bit more now, but back then it was almost impossible to find them unless you really went to Japan, until online sellers really became a thing and you could access the records and discogs and things like that. But yeah, back then you could buy records that are now worth 100, 200, 300 pounds for 20 quid. I mean, it was like whatever equivalent of.
Yeah.
No one was after this, or very few people were after this stuff. It was like a
That's
completely unknown world, really.
I mean, the first time I went was about 15 years ago, and I'd never seen anything like it. You picking up copies of East Plants for, I think, worked out about $15-20, something like that. Crazy, crazy. You go through, and like Tony says, it's all, it was still marked up, Nippon Jazz or whatever, but no one was really interested. I remember the first trip I went, I think I came back with 60 albums, and most of a lot of them most of them have still got. As time's gone on, each trip the number of albums goes down. I mean, the last two trips I'm lucky to bring home 15 or 20, if that, because the prices are just crazy now, even with the yen,
Yeah.
even with sterling strong against the yen. But I mean, the whole thing's exploded. So many people going to Japan, which is great. Good luck to them. People are over there trying to dig up records, but it's harder and harder to find stuff over there now. And invariably, you have to do online auctions. I think it's true to say most rare and desirable stuff that we're looking for goes on Yahoo, on Japanese auction sites, or eBay through Face and people like that. And the prices are just bonkers now. To collect what we've got and start now, it would cost you
Oh
the
God.
price of a Rolls Royce. I should think it's just bonkersly
Wow.
expensive. But I mean, for the first sort of 10 years of, well, probably the first 8 or years or whatever, going fantastic, picked up so much stuff. TBMs, easy to pick up, just, and not expensive either. And now they doubled, tripled. Stuff that I paid, I think it was, I remember buying a record from Yusuke Agawa on the first trips I did. It was expensive, it was £80 then. I ended up selling it for £1,000 a couple of years ago to an American guy I know. And and the reason it went for that price is because it had the Obi. Without the
Isn't that
Obi, it's
crazy?
half of that. Because it's the completest thing, and I think that's what drives the prices even higher now. Is that a lot of the Chinese collectors want the full, the sort of, how do you put it, the complete article, which is the Obi, and the Obi will double, triple, quadruple the price sometimes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even the reissues, some of them they'll put them out and they're gone. And even
Yeah.
the reissues are going for hundreds of dollars. Some of them
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
Because they do
repressing.
very limited print. They do very limited numbers, I think I think Universe Sounds they do three or 400 at a run, and that's it. When
Yeah.
they're gone until they press them up again. That's it.
Yeah, so even like some of these, like I just picked up some of these
Yeah.
Oh
three
yes,
blind
yeah.
mice. They're fantastic. They sound great, but this will cost you $60 plus shipping.
Well,
Like
well, because as Mike said, they they deliberately keep the numbers quite low, and they don't really, and they export so few of them, so you can only buy them in the States or Europe on import. So you got to pay the import prices straight away. So, um, so that you're forking out for that straight away. They so the work we're doing in reissuing stuff um, is
which I
quite,
do want to talk about some of these. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's quite, so that album there by Kusuke Mine, that originally came out on Philips, which was a major label in Japan, and we actually we actually went to Philips and said, we'd like to license it, and they said, well, we can't license it. We can't find the paperwork. So, with the absence of a paperwork or contract, they couldn't do it. But at the same time, they couldn't also prove that they own the rights to it either. So it's a kind of in
Oh,
limbo.
interesting.
We went directly to Koskimine, and he said, okay, yeah, I'll give you, I'll license it for you. So we put it out, and then about a year later, Philips reissued their own version of it. I guess they found the paperwork. I don't know, but yeah. So we've put about what we've done now, 20 albums, Mike, 21 reissues. I can't remember what it.
20 including Stir Up.
20.
20
Yeah,
including
Okay.
Stir Up.
and is
Stir Up
it
will be number 20, and
right? Okay,
it'll be five compilations, and then we've got a
there's a
couple
few more,
more in the
couple more.
pipeline to come. Yeah, a
Yeah,
few more to
yeah,
come.
yeah.
Some
That's
real
right.
rippers.
So
But
how many can you just keep going with the J Jazz series, or do you have so many planned and that's it, or can you just as you get the licensing find them, you're going to keep putting them out?
Well, I
well,
think the compilations. This is it now.
Yeah.
yeah,
We just can't. We've hit the end of the road. Really, we just can't put another one together without using majors. So I think that's it. But yeah, for the individual reissues, yeah, for good enough quality,
yeah.
a BBE are up for it. Yeah,
If we
keep them
find
going.
enough, you know, in some ways, individual albums are slightly easier than a compilation, because you're just dealing with one artist or one label, and if you find the right record, you've got a decent copy with decent sleeve, you can scan in and all that, and the process itself is relatively more straightforward than a compilation. Um, so yeah, I'm sure there are. I mean, the thing about the Japanese jazz scene, particularly now, but particularly in that period from the late '60s through to the sort of mid to late '80s, that 20-year period, so much music was produced just for the domestic jazz market. The market in Japan was big enough that the artists could just survive playing in Japan. Some did leave Japan to work overseas or whatever, but for the most part, most of them kind of stayed there and sold their records there. You've got a population of 160 million people or whatever. Um, why would you need to necessarily export your records? But the other weird thing is that even the major labels, um, and this still happens, they put a record out and they delete it within about 2 months. That's it. It's like the turnover, the churn is so fast.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Or will BBE keep these in print, or I noticed some of them you can't get anymore? Or will BBE keep re-releasing these, or keep them in print,
well,
or what's
the
their?
license, the license will have a term limit on it, so maybe 10 years or
Oh,
whatever.
really?
So long as they can, so they theoretically they could release it as many times within that, let's say 10 years, 5 years or 10 years, whatever the term is. But once that term expires, they'd have to relicense it. They couldn't keep putting it out in perpetuity.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because already some of them, a couple of them you can't find. This one here, if you don't if you guys wouldn't mind talking just briefly about a couple of these releases. This is a really cool release here. Um, and what I find fascinating about these is, um, well, first of all, the packaging is fantastic. I mean, these are just beautiful packages with the liner notes and everything here. But how do you like pick which, like, this came out of your collection, one of your collections, and you decided, oh,
Yeah,
this will be a good one to do?
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Just we should we
I
just
think
we just go, Mike,
I
what do
think
you
we both
reckon?
had it. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
go,
we both had a
this is a
copy
good one,
ship.
isn't
We
it? What
both
do you
thought, oh
reckon?
yeah, yeah. Let's do this one.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's basically
definitely.
it.
Yeah,
We just pick
yeah.
out we just pick albums that we like, and that we think has some potential to be interesting, and not just a kind of might have an interesting story behind it, or in the case of that one, he's a pianist. He's still active. He still plays today,
Yeah.
and he'd put out a few records on a little boutique label called Akita's Disc, and but that album there is a private pressing on his own private label, and only a
Mm.
couple of hundred were ever made. It's a live recording recorded at a little jazz club, and both Mike and I had the album, and we agreed we could try and license it. So we went to the artist himself, Kono-san, and he said, "Yeah, fine." And it was very straightforward. And I interviewed him, sent the questions over to Japan, and he answered them. And I wrote up the sleeve notes, and he supplied some pictures. And Jake Holloway, who does all the layout of all the artwork and stuff. He lays out all the artwork and creates the OBs and things. I mean, that's the proper OB there that came with the. We try
Yeah,
and
which is,
if the albums
yeah,
come with
so cool.
not all Japanese albums come with an album. Most
Mm.
did, but so we just recreate the OBs for the records. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool because nobody would ever probably have heard of this album if it wasn't for you guys putting it out because
No,
it wasn't popular in Japan, right? No one would have really heard it there, and certainly nobody
Mm.
in the United States would have heard it.
no. I mean, you can when you go on when you go on Discogs and you look at a record and it says and there's a thing that says how many people have it and how many people want it, right? There's a thing that one is like I think had one person had it and like two people wanted it. It was like
Yeah,
nobody knew about it. It was just like
Yeah.
and I haven't looked at what it goes for now, but back then you could just pick it up because no one was
Mm.
it's until such time as its profile rises up, no one knows about them, right? So
Mm.
Mike and I knew the artist because of his other stuff, so we knew it'd be a good record. So we bought our copies, but it seemed like we're the only ones who were interested in him.
yeah, it's awesome. This one here is one of my favorites too. I love this one.
Oh yeah, that is a killer.
Ah,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, this
So
is
'cause that
just
was just yeah.
fantastic. This
yeah,
is just
C came out as a CD.
yeah,
oh really?
that originally came out in
Yeah.
1990 as a CD only. Um, so Takeo Moriyama, the drummer, he's a really important. He's one of our favorite artists in the whole thing. We've done a few of his pieces. Um, Absolutely incredible drummer. I mean, he started out late '60s with the Yoshika Yamashita trio, free jazz trio, very important band. Um, Amazing uh, technician on the drums and feeling, incredibly powerful drummer. And then by the mid '70s, he'd kind of moved away from free jazz and explored far more kind of like modal jazz, and he just created a whole series of incredible albums, really, that are beautiful, just absolutely top level playing. So that was one that wasn't from the '60s or '70s, but we both had on CD, but we knew was absolutely amazing that needed a vinyl reissue. So we approached him, and he was like, "Yeah, put it out." And interviewed him again, and interviewed Fumio Itabashi, the pianist, on it, and all of that. Yeah, it's a great session. And in fact, I got um, Takeya Moriyama to come over to London to play last November for the London Jazz Festival, and he came
Oh
over with a
wow.
band with Fumio Itabashi, Kosuke Mine, and he came over and played to a 2,000 capacity audience at the Barbican Centre as part of the London Jazz Festival. was the closing night of the festival, and it was absolutely incredible. He was quite overwhelmed actually. He was like
Incredible.
almost in tears at the end of the concert because it was just a phenomenal show. So it took about 7 years to pull together that concert from when I first
Were
had
you
the
able to
idea.
record that?
There
Were
is
you
a,
guys
there is
able
a
to
Sorry.
record that?
well, not
Yeah.
for release. There is a sort of front of house recording, but not for release. We did do a live album with Takeo Moriyama just before COVID. He
Mm.
came over again. He came over. The pianist called Masahiko Sato, another really important figure in Japanese jazz. And he played a really small little club in East London, and we put that album out. It's live at Cafe Otto. That's available on BBE. Yeah,
Yeah. So that is this one here,
Mm.
right?
that's right.
Cafe
Yeah,
Otto.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah. They came over, and I
This
hooked
is
them up with a couple.
wonderful.
Yeah, I hooked them up with a couple of British bass players, a saxophonist called Idris Rahman and bass player called Leon Brichard, who were in a group called Ill Considered, British jazz group. Yeah, it's a good show that. Yeah,
Incredible.
Yeah, that's a
I've
great
never seen
album
so many
too.
drumsticks get splintered.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
He broke a
Yeah,
few drumsticks.
Moriyama. We saw the. God, we saw when they did the sound check. He went through drumstick after drumstick. They're just splintering and shooting off everywhere. I think
Yeah,
incredibly powerful drummer. Quite
yeah.
incredible,
It's
really.
amazing. And he's like he's 81, 80, 81, 82, whatever. He's just a phenomenal player. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you guys have any more live stuff planned or any other recordings that you could possibly put out that are live recordings or
No, I mean, live
Not at the
recordings are a
moment.
little bit of a hard sell, actually. They're not they're always slightly trickier to sell than studio recordings, I think. So you've got to be kind of
really?
yeah, that's in my experience. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Compared to a studio session.
There's this one intrigues me and just because apparently this is the only album this guy ever made.
Oh,
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
And so I was reading about this and I was like, well, you can't even find any information on it. So what is
no,
this guy's kind of a mystery guy here, right?
mm.
yeah. So I picked the album up, and it was again another private pressing, recorded live at a little jazz club, and we managed to track down the vibes player on that session, and he hadn't seen the saxophonist Hideaki Tarakawa for 30 years. He didn't know where he was. It's like no idea, gone missing. So I can't remember how we licensed it in the end. Just to be honest, we did license it. Maybe
I, th-
maybe the vibes player said yes.
I thought it was through him. Yeah, I think it
I
was
think it
through
was
him. But didn't the album come out and then then Hideyasu was suddenly found on Facebook and
Yeah,
looking saying,
quite quite
"Hang on a
quite
minute, I
we-
did this record."
quite weirdly, about a year or so after we reissued the album, someone put a picture up on Instagram of
That was it. Yeah.
Hideaki Tarakawa sitting in a record shop holding the record. He suddenly appeared out of the ether. So I don't know where he'd been, but we haven't received any lawyers' letters yet, so I guess he's not bothered. But yeah, but that album when it first came out, it was only no more than 100 copies pressed of that record. It was only available at his gigs. So another example of just a very obscure but very good record. And there's loads of them
Yeah,
in
and
Japan.
that's
Yeah.
again, yeah, no one ever would have ever heard of it. That's a great album too, and I was intrigued by that. I was like, well, where'd this guy go? Why did he only record one
Mm.
record? What?
But
You
I got that from an
You
American
get
guy. An American seller sold that to me from the States. Well, no, well,
Oh,
that didn't come
really?
to me from
Considered.
Japan. Yeah, it came from me from an American guy.
Mm.
But there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys got a lot of good ones. I got a couple more here I wanted to ask you about. I think this is another good one.
Oh, that's an amazing record. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Mm.
yeah. Very
Yeah, so
unusual.
this
Yeah. It's yeah,
Seiya Suzuki's
quite
on
different.
it, and yeah, again, beautiful packaging. I love the way you
Yeah,
guys do the OB strips and all the just
Masahiko Tagashi on that drummer, amazing drummer. Um, It's and that's the thing about Japanese jazz players, particularly of this era. They just play at the very highest level of execution. They're just astonishing. That's why so many American jazz players used to love to play in Japan, play with these guys, because they were just like, wow, it's just particularly
Mm.
drummers. I mean, there's a lot of very, very good Japanese jazz drummers. Exceptional.
Now in the 60s and 70s, you had, especially in the 70s with American jazz, it kind of was a lot of fusion, right? I mean, I think maybe you could argue that the 70s was kind of a weak period for American jazz. Some would say for fusion people, I guess that would But with the Japanese jazz, you had kind of that spiritual jazz, some of that fusion stuff, kind of post bop stuff. And I think, what do you guys think about the comparing what was going on in the late 60s and the 70s in Japan versus what was going on in the US for US jazz?
I think the Japanese stuff was much harder edge because there's a lot more. It was, what was it called? Now rock, I think it was called, something like that, rather than fusion. But when you hear things like Kikuchi and Watanabe collaboration, I mean, that is really out. Psychedelic, jazz
Mm.
rock, spirit, it's all in there. And there's Sadao did some incredible albums in the early 70s. You would, compared to what he started putting out at the end of the 70s when he went completely into the sort of lightweight fluff, they're chalk and cheese. And it's the same
Mm.
for many artists, from 1970 to probably 75, 76, maybe into 77, you get some of the heaviest sort of jazz, rock, fusion, spiritual. I think for both of us, we think that's the key era, that sort
Mm.
of 70s, the early 70s and through to the sort of mid to late 70s is when some of the fun, and probably some at the end of the 60s stuff as well, when they kind of got off playing Spinning Wheel and Wichita Linesman and things like that on every Masahiko Sato album, and all of a sudden just went completely for it. Things like the Soundbreakers with Masahiko Sato, Amalgamation, which is just completely bonkers. What was it? Music Concrete, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
mixed with Adolf Hitler voice samples, Hirohito, machine guns, string quartet, things like that. And that was 1970. And I think it's true to say some of it sort of collides over with the krautrock thing as well, that sort of Ashrar Temple sort of sound. But yeah, and also it also meshes up a lot with the free side of things. So you get a lot of the free jazz people playing on the straight jazz and the fusion. So the whole thing just becomes a big boiling pot of incredibly interesting music.
There's also, I think Mike said bang on. There's also the fact that um, the production standards of Japanese recordings
Mm.
um, are generally much higher than American recordings at that time.
Interesting.
Right? So they just are. They just, I stand by that because even tiny labels. I mean, Three Blind Mice, right, started in 1970. Independent, fully independent label as it was then. It's now owned by Sony. But back then, little label, just starting out, amongst some of the best sounding, those first pressings anyway, um, jazz records you're going to get. They're up there easy, the best ECM, Blue Note, sonically, I'm talking. So their attention to every single link in the production chain is that very typically Japanese attention to detail to
Mm.
make everything as perfect as it can possibly be. Not to say that there weren't, great sounding European jazz records or American. Of course, there are, but as a general rule, I've got lots of American jazz records from the same period, even on major labels, that sound shit, basically,
Hmm.
on Atlantic or whatever, or Fantasy. Great music, but badly produced and badly recorded. That's very, very rare in Japan to hear a bad sounding record, a bad press or a bad mix. It's almost unheard of, even down to tiny labels. They went to every single, and that's when you get things like there was a vogue for direct disc cutting, where they
Right.
bypass
Yeah.
tape, so you have the band in the studio playing live all together. There's no overdubs directly through, and the disc is cutting what directly onto the lacquer. So if they mess up, they've got to start again and just put a new lacquer on, right? Some of those. I mean, there was a bit of a vogue for that in America as well, but in Japan they were already into it. Some of those records just sound absolutely well. That sound like the band in the room with you. So I think there's a
Yeah.
combination of that. So you've got the music they're playing is wild and free and just like no holds barred basically. They spent the 60s, the 50s and early 60s trying to copy American jazz basically down to what they wore, the Ivy League suits and all of that stuff, and the brogues, and even the way they looked. They were trying to look like jazz messengers or the new modern jazz quartet. And then by about 67, 68, they thought, sod this, this isn't working. This is a creative dead end. And 68 into 69, and that's at the same time they're hearing what Miles Davis is doing in like In a Silent Way and all those kind of albums, and the Bitches Brew, hugely influential, of course, all around the world. They ditch the suits, out come the fringe suede jackets, and they grow their hair, and they're off. And it's like by about 19. I mean, if you look at our book, there's those years 1970 to about 73. There's like a look at just how many records are featured in that book of that short period. And they were just pumping out this music. They were like, recording so much stuff. And then I think it's almost like, as Mike said, by about 77, 78, they'd got out of their system all this like free playing and this like
Yeah.
heavy kind of psychedelic groove funk stuff, all that modal stuff, all post bop, all gone. And they were like, oh man, I need to sell some records. I need to play Bye Bye Blackbird or something. So they become very much more. They're kind of like got it out of their system, and they're playing much more radio friendly stuff. And AOR. Although every now and then, interestingly, someone like Terra Masahino, a lot of them, several of them relocated to America. By the way, by this point, they'd like working extensively in the United States and recording a lot of the American fusion guys, Dave Lehman and people like that, and Harvey Mason. And so Terra Masahino, the trumpet player, who does the forward in our book, by the way, by the late 70s, early 80s, his sound had really changed from even 4 or 5 years earlier, much more commercial, radio friendly. But tucked away on his albums, there was still 1 or 2 tracks that were absolutely mind-bending. And some of those tracks were picked up by, as Mike said, the early 80s British, some of the DJs to play in clubs because they were really funky and heavy dance grooves to them. And they're considered classics now. So they still, had it in them a little bit. But their sound had dramatically changed from this. I mean, they couldn't sustain that, I don't think. They couldn't sustain that kind of music and that level of playing, that style for forever.
Very long.
It's very fierce.
Yeah. It is fierce, very intense. That's why I love it. It's just kind of the jazz version, like of heavy metal, almost just very psychedelic, heavy rock.
I mean, there's a reason, right? There's a reason for why a lot of the American guys in the 70s, had second careers in Japan, right? So they would go to Japan and they would record albums that only ever came out in Japan. And some to this day have never been reissued outside Japan properly. So people like, Herbie Hancock, I once have subsequently, but, Herbie Hancock, that live album, Flood, absolutely amazing. That was a Japan-only album. Hadn't been, it wasn't available outside Japan for years. Miles Davis, those albums, Angata and Pangaea, and they're both recorded in Japan. They're the heaviest stuff he ever did, But that's the sort of stuff Terry Masahina would throw off like every week. So yeah,
Mm.
Yeah, it's incredible. This one I really enjoyed. Masao Nakajima, which this one was what fairly recent.
Oh,
Kimosabi.
Kimasabi. Yeah, this is a really cool album too. Um,
You frozen, by the way.
oh, is it? Oh, it looks like you froze. Let's see.
Oh,
Is
have I?
everybody?
I'm still moving around.
no, I'm all right.
I see you. Oh, you froze there for a minute. Okay, Tony. I think you maybe.
I can
But
hear. I
this
can.
this album here, how'd you guys come across this one?
Oh,
Oh,
that's one of Tony's.
that's one of mine. Yeah, just I can't remember where I picked it up to be honest, but it didn't. I don't think it cost me that much actually, but from memory. But yeah, just a lovely, really solid jazz record. Great playing. So we thought, well, let's put this out. But the label didn't exist anymore. So
Oh, okay.
luckily, he's still alive. I think he works mainly in. I think he's a conductor now for a classical orchestra or something. Anyway, but Kay and our man in Japan tracked him down and explained we want to license it, and he was like, "Oh, okay," and so that's kind of what we did really. And yeah, it's a really lovely. And in fact, so the title track Kimosabe is written by a New Zealand jazz artist called
Mm.
Mike Knock, and Mike Knock, fantastic, still alive, I think. Played
Mm.
extensively with like Yusuf Lateef and stuff in the 60s. And I was curious to what how I looked up the track Kimosabi Mike Knock. I couldn't find a version by him, and I thought, what is a Japanese guy doing recording a Mike Knock track that Mike Knock himself has never recorded, right? So I contacted Mike Knock in New Zealand, or maybe he's Australia now, and I did some kind of like very brief chat with him. And basically, what had happened was um, the Japanese guy had gone to see Mike Knock in concert in America. No, in Japan, I think it was. I can't remember, one of the two places, and spoke to him briefly after the gig and explained that he was a young jazz pianist starting out, and Mike Knock gave him the track. Well, try this. Gave him Kimasabi, and he
Oh,
recorded it.
interesting.
Yeah, but Mike Knock had never heard it, so I sent him a copy of it. Yeah,
That's awesome.
he, that's my Mike Knock story.
Do you guys
Don't
keep up with a
don't knock
lot of the
don't
modern
don't knock
jazz?
it.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I had to
Do
say
you
that.
guys keep up with a lot of the modern jazz coming out of Japan now? I've started getting into a lot of these current artists that I find are very good and very creative. Do you guys keep up with a lot of the modern stuff coming out as well?
I mean, I'm not some of it, and we've been. I mean, I can't
Mm.
speak for mine, but I've been immersed. I've been immersed so deeply in the classic and vintage stuff. I mean, there's some. Yeah, there's one very good one actually. We're going out to Japan actually next week. And
Oh,
we're
you
going to
guys are
catch
going.
up.
I'm going in
Yeah,
February.
Mm.
yeah, we're going out literally next week, flying out next week, and we're going to catch up with a guy called Shinsuke Fujieda, who's a saxophonist. Um,
Ah.
this is his record here, and he's like one of the current crop who was on the
Oh, I
one
saw
hand,
that got released. You can't
it's
find them
very
now.
it's
It's
just been
been
reissued.
reissued.
It's been
Yeah,
reissued.
I went
This
to
is
look for them, and I don't. Yeah, I don't. It looks like they sold out already.
oh the repress is sold out.
Tried.
Okay, all right, yeah,
I don't know. I went and looked for it actually yesterday, and I couldn't find any more. That they on all the websites they showed they were sold out.
right. Well,
So I don't
so
know. Maybe.
he's an example of so he's a he plays reed, soprano, tenor, etc. But he kind of on the one hand he's very much tips his hat to the classic spiritual jazz sound of the 1970s, but it's quite a contemporary vibe, and it's got a violin in the band. which I don't necessarily always go for, but it works really well. And the competitions are fantastic. So he's very hot at the moment, that guy, Sensuke Fujita. And we're going to see him, and I've been in contact with him, so we're going to see him perform at a little club in Tokyo as well. So yeah, I mean,
Oh, nice.
jazz has been a jazz never really dipped in popularity in Japan. It's quite interesting. That's why it's still a big market. Um, whereas compared to like America and Europe, its fortunes have ebbed and flowed. Japan's always had a
Mm.
healthy demand for it.
Yeah, talk a little bit about Tokyo. I'm going actually February, towards the end of February, I'm going to Tokyo for 11 days for the first time.
Oh
So,
wow,
what
that'll be interesting
recommendations
for
do
you.
you guys have? There's so many different jazz clubs, jazz cafes, record stores, eight floor record stores. I mean, you got Disc Union. I mean,
Mm.
it's intimidating. So, any advice?
I'll send you a list.
Oh, I would love
I've
that.
got,
I put the
I'm not joking. I've got a stock email that I bang out to people who are going. But yeah, I'll send you a list. But we're going what 11, 12 days, something like that,
Yeah.
and already we've got over half the evenings are full because we're going to see Daisuke Furuwa with his Shibashiratsu Orchestra at Nuttall House with a small unit, at the Pit with the big full band. While we're over there, Masahiko Sato's playing. Unfortunately, we've got commitments both the nights that he's on. It's just there's just so much stuff. But each time we go, oh yeah, Kosuke Mine, Yoshio Suzuki, Hakia Kim, they're all playing as a band called The Blend. So we're going to see them. We went and saw them last time. They're fantastic. Yeah, I mean, live jazz is just incredible. Fumio Itabashi is usually playing. Unfortunately, he's not this time. But last three trips, I've managed to catch him live. Every night of the week, there's something good. And you go to clubs like Dolphy in Yokohama, it's kind of like the size of the room I'm in now, 3 4 trestle tables, maybe 30 people in there, and that's it. You're nearly sitting on top of the band. The Pit in bit bigger, but again,
Mm.
a fantastic venue. You just see something, and it goes from fusion to straight ahead to hard bop modal and just complete. I've seen some incredible free jazz gigs over there, especially at the Pit. It's fantastic, really good.
Yeah, and
yeah. I
Mike's
mean,
right. You can go out any night of the week and watch, you know,
Yeah.
totally world class, weapons grade musicians playing for like, you know, eight, nine, $10 entry fee, and
Mm.
as close as you can reach out and touch them on the stage. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, then you've got, as well as the live jazz, you've got the phenomenon of the jazz kissa, the listening
Mm.
bars in Japan. So they're unlike anywhere else as well. So you can go in and check those out, sit down, have a drink or a coffee or a beer or whatever, and just listen to some great music cranked up on some massive JBL or Altec speakers if you want, and just sit
Mm.
there and in all the grime. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
yeah, I'm really excited. I've got a list of all these jazz cafes, and I'll never get to them all in 11 days. But and I'm also going to see. I don't know if you guys know Vladimir Shafronov. He's a Russian jazz pianist. I've had him on the channel several times, and he's going to be there playing. So I'm going to see him at the Sometime. I think the name of it's
All right.
Sometime,
Right.
Okay.
which that looks like a kind of a cool little club there where the band's kind of down, sunken in the middle, and you got the tables
Yeah.
around the. So I'm really excited about it. And then the record stores. What about the record stores? Because
Oh well.
um, there's so many of them.
It's there's a lot. There are a lot. The there's still a lot of records around. The price has gone up, the quality's gone down, but I mean it's still probably the best place in the world to go to buy
Mm.
records, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. So
Disc Union.
I mean, Disc Union, which is like a major chain record store, but unlike, you know, even the Tower Records in Tokyo, the jazz section there is just like amazing. That's like a major chain. It's not even a sort of, you expect it from a little backstreet specialist jazz shops, but a major chain like Tower has just, great stuff in it.
I think they've all everyone's got on the bandwagon, I guess, these days that vinyl is huge. So many people are going to Japan. That's great, but unfortunately, you get dealers going over there. I saw a story about some guy coming back with I think 20,000 records, something like that. But places like Face, Meon, VDS, they go out. There's guys over there who go out into the countryside, leaflet, fly everywhere, bring your records. The records all come into a massive clearinghouse, and then they go out to places like VDS, Face. The Face were the first ones to start it, I think. Then VDS came along. Now Meon's another one, and they usually go to auction sites from there. But Disunion, Ella, all those sort of independents still pumping them out, and the HMV stores are ridiculous, and the prices are ridiculous with it. But if you want the records, quite often you'll find them. You'll pay through the nose, whereas for 10 years, well, even 5 years ago, I mean, the prices have doubled at least in the last 5 years. But why not? You've got a business, you could make some money. If people are going to pay it, that's fine.
Right. Yeah. Well, you guys have started you guys are one of the first guys to do this. It's really cool. And of course, now you've got the major record labels like Sony's putting out reissues. I mean, other companies are putting out now reissues of a lot of these. So I think the competition's getting right. It's getting harder to find new things to release. Right.
It is. It's. I mean, you look now, and it's like every week you just see more and more stuff coming out. And you think, God, who's reissuing this? Who's reissuing that? You can hardly keep up with it. How some of them get licensed, I do not know, because there's stuff that we've tried, and the contract is without doubt dead and buried, and we know guys in Japan who've tried it as well, and all of a sudden it will come out from Italy or somewhere. So I don't know, but I mean, Canada, We Are Busybodies, they released Aguri, Kuskimine. It's just constant. There's just stuff coming out everywhere. It's quite interesting. It's great because it exposes the music, and more power to their elbow. But it is quite astonishing. You don't have to spend a fortune if you're not that hung up on having an original, and I certainly am not with a lot of the prices these days. Then why not? Good luck to them.
Right. Yeah. The originals are they're pretty much I can't afford those most of the time, the originals. So it is nice to have these, and I don't mind paying $50 if it's, especially if they're nice. If they're nice, these are what, $35-$40, and they're beautiful, they're wonderful packaging, and they sound great. Sound quality is great on all these.
Yeah, well, that's Frank Merritt, the Carvery, the mastering guy.
Yeah, Frank,
He does an amazing job. Yeah.
So we got there's a lot of new stuff coming out. I discovered this trumpet player. This is more straight ahead jazz, but I'm like really digging into some of these modern records. But this guy's this is more straight ahead kind of stuff. But the Shitaro Matsui guy,
right? Yeah,
this guy's a really good trumpet. Guy's a really good trumpet player. He's got a few records out.
There's a whole bunch of young, like I said, the tradition has never gone away in Japan. It's I mean, to be fair, never. You could say the same about Europe and America, but there's something quite specific and different about the vibrancy of the Japanese jazz scene, which has never really. It doesn't seem to have receded. And as I was kind of been there and been largely popular, and and there's
right. Oh yeah,
yeah.
This was really good too. But
Yeah, I mean, there's also, in recent years, as well as what Mike and I have been doing with Japanese jazz, there's been a broader, I think, interest in the music of Japan and the music history of Japan. So you have an interest in Japanese electronic music and ambient music and their kind of what's called city pop, which is a kind of funk, sort of funk kind of soul music that was very popular in the late 70s into the mid 80s, quite commercial. That's now very, very popular, and there's compilations of that now. Um, and whole DJ nights playing that kind of stuff. So,
Mm.
because none of those records ever really left Japan in any quantity, so they just stayed there. So people are just discovering them now.
yeah, that's incredible. It's any other words of wisdom for navigating Tokyo?
Yeah. Yeah. Take comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be prepared to walk. No, you'll love it. It'll be fantastic. You just the cases are sometimes hard to find. They take a bit of negotiating, and sometimes trying to get your head around where all the different record shops are. But yeah, you get your head around it soon enough. It's fantastic. You can't go wrong. Brilliant records, music, live music. What more do you want? Good bars, great beer.
Try not to find yourself at 3 a.m. like Mike and I on the wrong train home.
Yeah.
But no, it's an amazing city, amazing people, and it's I envy you the
Yeah,
fact that you're going
the
there for the
people are
first time, because
fantastic.
I can't repeat that feeling when I went there for the first time. It's kind of overwhelming. Um, but yeah, just have fun and enjoy it, soak it up, because it'll be gone in a blink of an eye, and
Mm.
you want to go back.
yeah, and they're pretty welcoming in the Jazz Kisas. They speak English, or you can kind of. They're pretty.
I think it's fair to say that English isn't as widely spoken as you'd think
No.
sorry, let's put it another way. English isn't that widely spoken. Some places, yeah, some places no, but you can make yourself understood. I mean, I don't speak a word of Japanese. I've been going there for 15 years, and I'm still, I think this is 12th, 10th trip or whatever, 12, I don't know. And yeah, I can manage to. I'm useless with chopsticks as well. Absolutely hopeless, even after all those visits. But I can still manage to sort of get. It's great. It's fantastic. You just enjoy every minute of it. It's a fabulous place. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and
With
they're bringing back the records.
with
Right.
translation apps, with translation apps now on your phone, it completely
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's
transforms
right.
true. Yeah,
what you
it's
can do
quite
now. So
incredible. Yeah,
yeah, you'll be
yeah. I
you'll
mean,
be fine.
I remember my first few trips. Hooking up with guys who I met through the blogs, just ordinary guys like me, and we'd be sitting. We remember the first time we all hooked up in Uncle Tom's, said in Gaia, and just sat there with phones, showing each other photographs of record sleeves and going like that, or yeah, good, bad, minimal. They didn't speak much. I spoke no Japanese, and we just sit there, get pissed, and have a laugh. Just kind of communicate through music, because there was no apps like that in those days. It was, but now it's great. You just sit there, type it out. There you go. Sometimes you do get a bit of a what, hey? But generally, yeah, it's great. Quite easy to make your way around.
And then the records, probably put them on carry on. Get 20 or 30 records. Probably better off bringing them on the carry on versus checking
Yeah,
them.
take them on the. I mean, it depends. It, if I think 20 or 30 or more, put them in a hard case and put your clothes in the carry-on bag.
Yeah.
Um, I used to bring them in on the carry-on, but I think the hard case is better, and just put it in the hold, to be honest. But it depends how many records. I mean, I think the first time I went, I think I brought back 70,
Oh, that's a lot.
80. I remember lying on the ground in Narita with records spewed everywhere, and the guy from Virgin saying to me, each time I go up, he go, nope, you still can't come on. It's still overweight, and I'll be moving all this stuff around from bag to bag to bag. But like I say, now, I mean, I think the last time we went, you brought back a lot, didn't you,
Well,
Tony? I think
when I went
40s.
last time, I said I'm not gonna. I said to myself, I'm not gonna buy many records. I bought 50 albums back. So
I think
there
I
you
bought
go.
a dozen, maybe 15. So I know this time when I land, I've got 12 waiting for me. So I think this time's going to be a bit of a bumper bundle. So I'll make the
Yeah,
most of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I imagine seeing all. I mean, especially record stores there. They're so. I mean, you got a whole floor of just jazz and like Disc Union, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you got, boy, you go a
Well,
Chanamizu, you
there's a whole shop
got
of jazz.
colossal. Yeah, Chanamizu is a one to go to. Disunion and Chanamizu. But yeah, I mean HMV Alta. I think it's moved now from where it was. But yeah, that's colossal. Tower upstairs, monstrous. There are tons of used stuff in there. It's just loads and loads of it. But like I say,
Yeah.
you the prices are high now, especially
Yeah.
HMV. They're very high. But like I say, you pay your money, you take your choice, don't you?
Yeah. What about the new reissue stuff? They're probably cheaper there to get them than buying them here, I would
Oh,
assume,
much
because of the.
cheaper. Yeah,
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah.
And also, you
That,
quite often
yeah.
find, yeah, sorry, you'll also quite often find them in the used bins as well. So
Mm.
stuff that is 4,500 yen, it'll be knocked down. It'll be someone will have part X'd it, and you'll get it for 2,000 yen, 2,200 yen, something like that. So yeah, you'll be fine with that. I could pick up quite a few bits like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out and talking with me and talking about all these wonderful records. I look forward to Volume 5 coming out. I'll definitely pick that up. And then how you don't know how many more of the jjazz series you're going to have coming. Because, I mean, if you find something new, then that would be something that you would put out, right? So hopefully that's an ongoing
Pretty,
series.
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, Pete, who runs the label, said, every time we find an album that we think's worth it, run it by him, and I mean, he hasn't said no yet to any of them. So
No, yeah.
let's see how we get on. That might change
Yeah,
after a
right
mile and a
on.
half. Yeah, we've got one coming
We
out
got one. We got
down the line, which is really, really fierce
we
free
got
jazz. So that might kill it. I don't know.
Oh,
a
really?
real it's a real free jazz ripper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
A
it's
When's
real
that coming out?
ripper. It's fantastic.
later this year.
We're not
Later
sure
this
yet.
year.
We've approved the test pressings and the artwork's been done, so we'll see.
Right on. Well, I've done reviews of a lot of these. So when I get the other ones, I'll be doing reviews. And then whenever you
Right.
guys want to come back on again and talk about the new releases, I'd love to have you back on. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me. It's been a pleasure meeting you guys.
Okay, man. That's
Yeah,
cool, man.
lovely.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. Very enjoyable.
Thanks for your
Yeah.
interest and
Nothing.
support.
Yeah,
Thanks
nothing
for your
better than
support,
talking about
definitely.
records. Oh, absolutely. Nothing more fun than talking about records. I mean, you guys got huge collections, I bet. It looks like you've got a lot of records.
Don't even go there.
Yeah. And you can never have enough, right?
Wow. Tell that to my partner.
You better. Yeah. I was going to say you better ask my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
Difference of opinion.
All right, well, I'm gonna hit stop here, and again,
Okay.
we'll hopefully we can get together again.
Good to
Cheers,
talk.
man. Yeah.